Okay. So I'm feeling called to talk about this culture war that we're in. It's so fun, right? War is so fun. Especially when we don't know that we're in one. That's what's happening, everybody. If you didn't know, now you know. We are being orchestrated, told what to think. Narratives are being spun and created so that we can fight our neighbors. I know, it's crazy, right? It's real though. It's what they've been doing for a very long time. um, I wish I could show you all the evidence to prove this, but unfortunately, I am not an AI bot. I'm an ALLI. And we have been living in a world where we do not actually really know what's happening. We don't. We think we hear about something. And we think that it's what's right. We think that there's a narrative out there because someone brought up this idea, someone wrote this article, and it's like, oh yeah, I can get behind that. When really, 98% of all media is controlled. 98%. And if you didn't know before COVID that we are being orchestrated to be a country that is hating each other, then if you didn't know, I'm sorry that you didn't see that. Maybe we should talk. I've got plenty of support to give. I'm really not being like facetious when I say that I understand that you may not recognize that our government and our pharmaceutical companies have agendas. Who wants to believe that? Right? Nobody. This feels scary to me right here and right now. I'm feeling nervous because I want to share my story. Because I think it's really, it's like a hero's journey. Okay, I was 2016, I was a burning Bernie supporter. I was just like so fired up, like thank God we have this man who sees the value of what's happening with with what's happening with the world. Like, he gets that we shouldn't be in war. This man understands that like these food companies are putting bullshit glyphosate in our food, and that the the tax income, just like, I don't even remember right fully in this moment, but I know that I liked him. Okay, I knew it. I liked his policies. I was sold. I went to a caucus in 2016 in Denver. That's where I lived, and it was overwhelmingly supporting Bernie Sanders, the people there. And then I realized that it was the most bullshit way to take a number of people in an area to see if that majority would actually support Bernie or Hillary. By anyone's naked eye, it was Bernie. But they put us into rooms, and they only counted a few rooms, and in those few rooms, they knew that there was more Hillary supporters. And I watched this happen. And this was the very first time that I realized that I was not a free person in this country like I thought I was. For 26 years, I thought I was free. Thought I was making my own decisions, and overall, like, I understood that there was, like, these, hierarchies that were, like, trying to control us, but not like I didn't think it was that big. So that was my first eye-opening experience. I stayed in it for a long time. I really believed that all Trump supporters were asshole racists, dumb country folk who just cared about their guns and their redneck ways, and I thought that they were scum to the society. I would get in fights on Facebook. I got fights with my family and would cry at the idea of my dead grandfather supporting Trump. And I just want to say this right now. I don't support anyone, and I probably never will. Until I see this society, two-party system dismantled, I'm not going to support anyone. But what I am going to do is question them. And this... Okay, so then I'm just sticking with my story here for a minute. So then I'm still in this, I guess it would be left-leaning ideologies that veganism is the way to go. And I was a vegetarian for 10 years. From 20 years old to 30 years old, I was a vegetarian, and even those last 3 years, I was a vegan. Thank you very much, veganism. No, I don't know for sure if that was why. It probably was because our dental care is fucking off the charts, right? We stick shit in there in cavities to fill them, and then that actually ends up making our teeth crack later on. What the fuck? And so anyways, I was like super into not eating animals. And I learned a lot from that perspective. What I learned is that we get to shut down factory farms. There is no reason for factory farms because it's a propped up industry. We have lots of propped up industries. Cars, car making, for example. Do you know how many miles and miles of cars have been created already that have never been driven, that are sitting in these car lots? They're like I forget, there's a term for them. They're like the car graveyards. That's where new cars go to die. And yet we're still out there making cars. How the fuck does that make sense? Oh, I'll tell you why. It's because they want the people to stay working for no reason. So if we were really to have like realistic views, we would recognize that factory farms are not sustainable. And if the poor counties can't afford food, then invite the people who have money to buy land and farm to be in the community. Then you have farmers in your community. It is not, the solutions are not hard. Like, I can find a solution for so many issues in the world. And yeah, it may take some this and this and this, but really what it always ends up taking is dismantling this system that we have. And that's where I've been. I've been on this journey. So let's go to 2018. I was introduced to the idea of geoengineering as what's happening in our skies and our weather. And I really dove into this research. I recognized that the very first Project Popeye was the first weather warfare that ever happened on a war scale. It was against Vietnam. It was the U.S. in the Vietnam War. The U.S. cloud seeded so that 3 weeks worth of rain came down, and it flooded the rice farmers. It flooded both sides of the armies, but the Americans had a little bit more money for gear, for tents to stay dry. They had more army to send in and out, right? So that was one way. That was probably the main reason why we won. Because, I mean, I don't know. I'm not going to get into that because I don't play like I know history like that in depth. But I do know that Project Popeye was the very first project that we issued for weather warfare. And then we get into What was that? Hurricane in Texas where they had like all the mass flooding a few years ago. That was very easy to figure out the contracts for cloud seeding purposes. Anyways, I guess I'll just share all the ways I know. So we have patents out there. We have patents that show the technology that we use for weather modification. It is things like microwave technology from cell towers. It is the technology that comes from those big satellites, that are pointing up. That puts out a frequency that attracts heavy metals. So that's what we're doing when we cloud seed. We're putting nano-size particles of heavy metals. And evidence to show that is we have in Boulder, for example, I saw this water test sample. 17 different heavy metals were in the waters, and they were not from, they're not found. Like barium, aluminum, I don't know, I haven't talked about this stuff in a while, so I'm kind of forgetting the metals. But anyways, those ones, they were not normal metals that were just, that they could even be around. They were intentionally put into the atmosphere and they fell down. So why they're put into the atmosphere, I'll tell you that. Because if you can put nano-sized particles that can attract water to them, then if you are attracting water in an area, then you can use a technology that correlates with the heavy metals to send over here and release, or build it up here and release, or completely dry out an area, right? That's what we've seen. That's why we see these ridiculous rainstorms. Like, come on. You think that 3 weeks or however long it was just recently that it was raining in California, you think that's normal? No. You think that's just a part of climate change? Yes. Climate change is real. You know why it's real? Because humans are changing it. Not through their car driving, but through their spraying in the atmosphere. Also, there's just so much fucking evidence that I'm like, is it worth it? Yes, it's worth it for you to know. Yes, of course it's worth it. There is patents on the solar radiation management. That's what they're calling it. Harvard has come out and said that they're doing this idea, this project to block the sun so that it doesn't warm the planet. And really, what is that doing? What do we all need here on Earth to survive? We need sun. And we need the sun as it naturally comes to us. Not through the haze of clouds every fucking day. Look at it. Look at the sun next time. See if you can actually see the sun by itself. You aren't going to find it anymore. It is always blocked by some haze in the sky now, whether it's setting or rising. That is why vitamin D levels are so deficient in people now. So fucking deficient. I think it's a huge reason why we're so sick. What else can I prove this point with? Well, there's plenty of evidence. Geoengineeringwatch.org is probably one of the best sites because it has all of the things. You want to go look up the patents, you can go look up all the patents. You want to look up what projects the U.S. government has done, you can go look them up. You want to see what technologies are out there and how they're really doing it, and can they really actually control rain and hurricanes and tornadoes? Go find it. I honestly thought that once I learned this stuff, that it wasn't going to be long before people just like, I see a lot of chemtrails in the sky. Yeah, the sun's looking different. Yeah, even the shadows look different. I was so naive. So naive, little Allie. Yeah. People don't look up from their phones. People are their nervous systems are so fucking numb that they don't even recognize any differences, any messages that their body's trying to tell them. So they're not paying attention to their mother, the earth, the earth that supports them and gives them life. They're not paying attention to her. So what do I advocate for? I advocate for hemp to be grown all over the world to clean up our soils. I advocate for the stopping of weather modification. I advocate for true nutrition coming from animal products. I advocate for cutting out seed oils. Yes, I know, it's sad. They're in everything. Your favorite organic vegan stuff still has seed oils in it. I advocate for the stopping of castrating our young men. And I advocate for honoring our young women as they enter their bleeding years. These are the things I stand for. All of them have future generations in mind. I also advocate for stopping the conditioning that we have been living in. Look at it. Seriously, look at it. What stories have you been telling yourself since you were young? There's something wrong with you. The world is a scary place. There are people around me that don't know what they're doing. I had that thought. My mom was 20 and my dad was 21 when they had me. They were kids. They were good-hearted. They are good-hearted. They're still alive. They're great, good-hearted people. But when I was young, I had somewhat of an understanding that they didn't fully know what they were doing. And with my conscious parenting work, I've realized that if you can't provide a structure for a child to thrive and feel safe in, then they are not going to feel safe in this world. I had to look at that. I really had to look at that. It seemed easier to just be like, oh, it's fine. I don't need to worry about things that happened in my past that may be traumatic. It's fine. I can move on without them. Without acknowledging them, I mean. It's not true. You get to know, get to look at the conditioning and the programming that you have been in. We all do, because we have been programmed since we were born. And this is the life that we have lived. I'm 32 years old, and this is a life that I have been living in. This is the world that I've been living in, is one where most people are perpetuating war on the earth, and they don't even know it. So my prayer is that we all come together to recognize that there is a war that we do not have to participate in. And the only way to really, truly have an anti-war movement is to recognize the war, is to recognize that there is a culture war being orchestrated by the powers that we have known nothing about. We can sit here and speculate who is controlling, but it doesn't fucking matter. It doesn't matter if there's people involved who don't even know what they're doing, because that's what I believe. I believe there are people that are participating in geoengineering that have no idea that it is harmful. They don't even know what projects they're working on, because there are things called, I forget, where you aren't allowed to collaborate with another group or project. You're separate. So you don't know how these two work together. But somebody does. Some elite motherfucker knows that this is how you control it all. And I just want to go back to the prayer that we break through from our conditioning, that we take a minute to sit with our experiences of life, that we reflect upon, is this my true thought process here? Or did I just hear this little thing over here and now I have that same idea? That's my prayer, is that we all become sovereign, free beings, and that we come together and we find a way to master the game of unconditional love, that I live in a friendly universe that's always providing for me, nothing is against me. Everything that I just talked about, it seems like it's all against us. But really, if we just recognize that we don't have to live that way, if we can come together, we are the most powerful force in the whole universe. Is humans that have decided to not listen to the powers that be. Thank you, Mother Earth, for providing for us. Thank you for trusting us and understanding that this is all just a process. Thank you for loving us no matter what. Thank you for listening, for being a part of nature, for being a part of this world. No matter if you decide to look at your programming and conditioning or you don't, you're still a sacred being. You're still loved by your mother. Amen. Lakesh. Namaste. Thanks for listening to my super long life story of how I became a free thinker.